The vast emptiness of space held its breath as the alien vessel approached Earth's solar system. Captain J. Park sat in the observation deck, his dark eyes scanning the holographic displays that flickered with incoming data. Something was different about this encounter. He could feel it in his bones. The Krell diplomatic ship emerged from quantum space, its metallic surface gleaming like polished silver against the backdrop of distant stars. Communication protocols initiated, but something was already unusual. Where most alien encounters followed predictable diplomatic scripts, this one felt different. Krell's lead envoy, a tall figure with crystalline skin and multiple joint structures, transmitted standard first contact messages. But Captain Park noticed subtle inconsistencies. The translation algorithms were working perfectly, yet the alien's communication seemed hesitant, almost uncertain. "Prepare standard diplomatic response," Park murmured to his communication specialist Elena Kim. Her fingers danced across quantum communication panels, translating and analyzing every microscopic detail of the transmission. What the Krell didn't know was that humans had been preparing for this moment for decades. Hidden research facilities buried deep beneath Earth's surface and in orbital stations had been studying potential extraterrestrial interactions for generations. Humanity's greatest strength was not its technology, but its ability to adapt and understand complex systems rapidly. The alien envoy, named Krell 7, expected a primitive response. Instead, Park's team presented a meticulously crafted communication that was simultaneously diplomatic, intellectually challenging, and strategically ambiguous. Each word was carefully selected, each sentence constructed to reveal just enough, while concealing profound depths of understanding. Krell 7's communication patterns began to shift. Micro changes in transmission frequencies suggested confusion, then something resembling respect. Humans were not behaving according to the expected protocols of a supposedly young species. Elena Kim noticed first. "Captain, they're recalibrating their communication matrix. They're analyzing us differently." Park allowed himself a slight smile. Humans had learned that in galactic diplomacy, perception was more powerful than direct confrontation. They were playing a game far more sophisticated than simple territorial claims or technological displays. The observation deck hummed with quiet tension. Advanced sensors tracked every microscopic detail of the alien vessel. Quantum entanglement communicators stood ready, capable of transmitting and receiving information faster than the Krell could comprehend. Krell 7 transmitted what seemed like a standard diplomatic greeting, but Park's team quickly decoded multiple layers of hidden meaning. The alien was not just communicating, it was testing, probing, trying to understand the true nature of human potential. "Respond with Protocol Epsilon," Park instructed. It was a communication strategy developed by top linguistic and psychological experts designed to present humanity as simultaneously cooperative and unpredictable. The response was crafted to be polite, yet intellectually challenging. It contained subtle mathematical puzzles, cultural references that would require deep analysis, and communication patterns that suggested multiple potential interpretations. To the Krell, it would appear like a complex, almost playful intellectual dance. What was truly happening was a sophisticated assessment. Humanity was not just receiving a diplomatic mission, it was conducting a comprehensive intelligence-gathering operation. Every transmission, every micro-signal was being analyzed, processed, and stored in quantum memory banks. Krell 7's communication patterns began to show signs of genuine surprise. The humans were not behaving like a young, inexperienced species. They were responding with a level of complexity that suggested something more, a depth of understanding that went far beyond technological capability. As the initial contact continued, neither side revealed their true intentions. The Krell believed they were conducting a standard first contact protocol. The humans knew they were laying the groundwork for something much larger, a potential transformation of galactic diplomatic interactions. Captain Park watched the holographic displays, his expression calm but his mind racing. This was not just a meeting between two species. This was the first move in a complex, multi-dimensional strategic game that would reshape understanding of intelligence, communication, and potential in the universe. The first contact incident had begun, and humanity was exactly where it wanted to be: misunderstood, underestimated, and preparing for something extraordinary. The research facility hummed with quiet intensity. Elena Kim stood before massive quantum processors, her hands moving across holographic interfaces. Around her, teams of scientists worked with a focus that bordered on obsession. They knew something big was coming. Alien technology had been detected near Mars' orbit, a small probe that didn't match any known design. Most would see it as a simple, scientific curiosity. Elena saw it as an opportunity. The probe's design was complex, far beyond typical technological standards. Its quantum signature suggested multiple layers of computational capacity that should have been impossible, but impossible was a word humans were quickly learning to ignore. "Analyze frequency modulation," she whispered to her primary research assistant. The computer systems began breaking down the probe's communication protocols, layer by layer. Krell technological teams believed they were years ahead of human understanding. They had no idea how wrong they were. Humans had been preparing, studying, learning. Every alien technology that had ever come close to Earth had been meticulously studied, reverse-engineered, and understood. Within hours, Elena's team had not just decoded the probe's basic systems, they had begun developing adaptive technologies that could interface with and potentially control alien computational structures. It wasn't just analysis, it was transformation. The probe, designed to gather intelligence, was now becoming a tool for human research. Its quantum processors were being carefully modified, its communication channels slowly redirected. What was meant to be an intelligence-gathering device was becoming something entirely different. David Lee, the strategic coordinator, watched the developments with a calm smile. Humans had learned that true technological superiority wasn't about having the most advanced equipment. It was about understanding, adapting, and transforming existing technologies in ways no one expected. Quantum entanglement communications allowed the team to send carefully constructed signals back through the probe. These weren't just simple responses. They were complex mathematical sequences, communication patterns that would challenge and potentially reconfigure the probe's core programming. The Krell were about to learn an important lesson about human potential. As days passed, the probe began displaying behaviors that its original designers could never have anticipated. It started sending back information that was not part of its original programming, complex data streams that suggested a level of adaptive intelligence far beyond its initial design. Elena's team had effectively turned an alien intelligence-gathering tool into a human research platform. Each signal, each transmission was carefully studied, analyzed, and used to develop new technological approaches. What the Krell didn't understand was that humans saw technology differently. Where most species saw tools as fixed objects, humans saw them as living, adaptable systems that could be transformed, reprogrammed, reimagined. The research facility became a crucible of innovation. Quantum processors were being redesigned. Communication protocols were being rewritten. What had started as a simple alien probe was now becoming something entirely new. A hybrid technology that combined alien design with human adaptive thinking. Strategic meetings were held in hushed rooms. Military advisors, scientific researchers, and diplomatic experts discussed the potential implications. This was more than a technological breakthrough. This was a demonstration of human potential. David Lee prepared detailed reports. Each document was a carefully crafted message, not just about technological capability, but about human adaptability. The reports suggested capabilities without revealing true depths. They were designed to make the Krell both curious and cautious. Weeks turned into months. The transformed probe continued sending data, each transmission more complex than the last. It was no longer just a piece of alien technology. It had become something unique. A bridge between species, a testament to human innovation. Elena knew they were writing a new chapter in galactic understanding. This wasn't about competition. This was about showing that intelligence could take unexpected forms, that technology was not just about power, but about adaptation and understanding. As another signal burst from the modified probe, Elena allowed herself a small smile. The Krell thought they were observing humans. In reality, humans were the ones truly observing, learning, transforming. The technological confrontation had begun, and humanity was just getting started. David Lee understood something most military strategists missed. True power wasn't about weapons. It was about understanding minds. The Krell communication networks began experiencing strange disruptions. Nothing violent, nothing aggressive. Just subtle changes that made their entire communication system feel slightly off. David's team had created something unique, a psychological interference algorithm that didn't attack systems, but gently manipulated perception. Each communication signal carried microscopic emotional triggers designed to create confusion and uncertainty. Alien diplomatic channels started experiencing unexplained emotional fluctuations. Negotiation teams would suddenly feel uncertain. Strategic meetings would develop unexpected tensions. Leaders would make decisions that seemed logical but felt slightly disconnected. What humans had discovered was a way to weaponize psychological complexity. The Krell believed they understood emotional systems. They were wrong. Humans had spent generations studying complex psychological interactions, developing technologies that could influence thought patterns without direct intervention. Each transmitted signal was a carefully constructed psychological weapon, mathematical sequences that triggered specific neural responses, communication patterns that introduced subtle doubt, information streams designed to create micro-uncertainties in decision-making processes. David watched screens filled with complex data. To an untrained eye, they looked like random signals. To his team, they were precise psychological instruments, capable of reshaping entire communication structures. The first signs of success came quietly. Krell diplomatic teams started making uncharacteristic decisions. Military strategies became slightly less predictable. Political discussions developed unexpected emotional undertones. No single intervention was large enough to be noticed, but combined, they created a complex psychological landscape that slowly reshaped alien understanding. Elena Kim's technological research complemented David's psychological strategies. Where technology created pathways, psychological warfare created perceptual shifts. Together, they were transforming how the Krell understood human potential. Quantum communication channels became subtle transmission routes for these psychological interventions. Each signal carried layers of meaning, some obvious, some hidden, some designed to create specific emotional responses. The Krell leadership started experiencing something they had never encountered: genuine uncertainty. Their typically rigid communication structures were becoming fluid, unpredictable. Strategic meetings among Krell leaders became increasingly complex. Decisions that once seemed straightforward now carried unexpected emotional weight. Leaders would argue about perspectives they couldn't fully explain. David's team had essentially created a psychological infection, a set of communication patterns that could reshape perception without direct confrontation. What made these interventions truly powerful was their subtlety. This wasn't about destroying systems. This was about introducing complexity, about showing that psychological interactions could be as powerful as any weapon. Alien communication experts began studying these strange transmission patterns. The more they analyzed, the more confused they became. Each investigation revealed new layers of complexity, new ways of understanding communication. Humans weren't just responding to the Krell. They were teaching an entirely new way of thinking about interaction, about understanding, about communication itself. The psychological warfare wasn't about winning. It was about demonstrating potential, about showing that human intelligence could operate on levels that defied traditional understanding. Krell researchers would spend years trying to understand these transmission patterns. They would develop complex theories, write extensive academic papers, create entire research departments dedicated to understanding this phenomenon. What they wouldn't realize was that the complexity itself was the message. Humans were showing that intelligence wasn't about having the right answers. It was about creating environments where new questions could emerge. David Lee watched the global communication networks, a slight smile crossing his face. They weren't just sending signals. They were rewriting the fundamental understanding of communication, of interaction, of intelligence itself. The psychological warfare had begun, and humanity was transforming the very concept of conflict. Admiral William Hand stood in the observation room, watching holographic displays that revealed humanity's most closely guarded secret. The Nexus Council had been preparing for this moment for generations. What the galaxy didn't know was that humans had been playing a much larger game. Every technological breakthrough, every diplomatic interaction, every seemingly random communication, all of it was part of an intricate multi-generational strategy. The Nexus was more than an organization. It was a carefully constructed network of the most brilliant human minds, working across generations to position humanity in the galactic landscape. They didn't want conquest. They wanted something far more complex. Alien intelligence networks had been collecting data about humans for decades. Each piece of information they gathered was carefully constructed, a deliberate breadcrumb leading to a much larger revelation. Quantum data archives began releasing carefully prepared information. Strategic documents, technological research, communication patterns. Everything suggested a level of preparation that was almost impossible to comprehend. The first shock came when comprehensive files revealed that humans had been studying alien technologies and communication systems for over a century. Not just studying, systematically understanding, preparing, developing adaptive strategies. William watched as galactic communication networks started processing the information. Research facilities across different alien civilizations began analyzing the unprecedented data dump. What they discovered challenged everything they thought they knew about humans. Technological development wasn't linear for humans. It was multidimensional. Where other species followed predictable research paths, humans created entire new paradigms of understanding. Each technological breakthrough was connected to complex psychological and strategic considerations. The Nexus Council had been playing a game of galactic chess while others were playing simple checkers. Every interaction, every technological development, every diplomatic engagement was part of a larger, almost unimaginably complex strategy. Diplomatic archives revealed conversations and interactions that had been carefully managed for decades. What seemed like random diplomatic incidents were actually precisely calculated moves designed to create specific long-term outcomes. Alien research teams discovered that human adaptability wasn't just a trait. It was a systematically developed capability. Entire educational and research systems had been designed to create individuals who could think beyond traditional technological and strategic limitations. Communication networks across multiple alien civilizations began experiencing unprecedented levels of confusion. The information challenged fundamental understanding of what intelligence could be. William knew this was more than a revelation. This was a fundamental restructuring of galactic perception. Humans weren't just another species. They were a complex, adaptive intelligence that operated on levels most civilizations couldn't comprehend. The Nexus had been preparing for this moment for generations. Each member understood that true power wasn't about military might or technological superiority. It was about creating environments where new possibilities could emerge. Quantum data streams continued releasing information. Research databases, strategic documents, technological development paths, each reveal more complex than the last. It wasn't just information, it was a complete reconstruction of understanding. Alien leadership teams began emergency meetings. Military strategists tried to understand the implications. Diplomatic experts attempted to process the unprecedented revelation. What they discovered was that humans had been preparing a transformation of galactic interactions, not through conquest, but through a fundamental reimagining of what intelligence and cooperation could mean. The strategic revelation wasn't about showing human superiority. It was about demonstrating that intelligence could be adaptive, complex, and fundamentally collaborative. William Hahn watched the global communication networks. Decades of preparation were now bearing fruit. Humanity was introducing a new way of thinking about civilization, about potential, about the very nature of intelligent interaction. The galaxy was about to change, and humanity was leading the transformation. Commander Sarah Choi stood on the bridge of the diplomatic vessel, watching the massive galactic conference unfold. This wasn't just another meeting. This was humanity's moment of transformation. Alien representatives from hundreds of civilizations filled the enormous circular chamber. Each delegation watched with a mixture of confusion, respect, and something that looked like carefully hidden fear. Humanity had not conquered through weapons. They had conquered through understanding. The presentation began quietly. Sarah's team didn't use flashy technological displays or aggressive demonstrations. Instead, they shared a comprehensive vision of collaborative galactic development that was both simple and revolutionary. What made the presentation extraordinary was its approach. Humans weren't offering solutions. They were offering a new way of thinking about problems. Each slide, each explanation revealed layers of complexity that challenged traditional galactic understanding. Technological proposals weren't just about advanced systems. They were about adaptive frameworks that could transform entire civilizational challenges. Communication strategies weren't about dominance. They were about creating environments where multiple perspectives could coexist and evolve. The alien representatives realized something fundamental. Humans weren't trying to replace existing systems. They were offering tools to reimagine those systems. Quantum communication networks began processing the presentation in real time. Research facilities across different civilizations started analyzing the unprecedented approach. What they discovered was a radical reimagining of intelligence itself. Sarah understood that this moment was about more than political negotiation. This was a fundamental shift in how civilizations could interact, understand, and develop together. The presentation revealed decades of careful preparation. Technological developments that seemed random were actually part of a complex adaptive strategy. Communication patterns that appeared confusing were carefully constructed bridges between different ways of thinking. Alien diplomatic teams started experiencing something new, a sense of possibility that went beyond traditional competitive frameworks. Humans were showing that collaboration could be more powerful than competition. Each section of the presentation introduced concepts that were both simple and profoundly complex. Resource management strategies that could transform planetary development. Communication technologies that could help civilizations understand each other at deeper levels. The unified Galactic Diplomatic Corps watched in quiet amazement. What humans were presenting wasn't just a proposal. It was a completely new paradigm of civilizational development. Commander Choi's team had spent generations preparing for this moment. They understood that true power wasn't about control. It was about creating environments where multiple intelligences could grow, adapt, and transform. Technological demonstrations showed systems that could adapt in real time, communication frameworks that could bridge fundamentally different ways of understanding. These weren't just proposals. They were invitations to reimagine what was possible. The chamber grew quieter with each passing moment. Alien representatives began understanding that this was more than a diplomatic meeting. This was a moment of collective awakening. Humanity wasn't presenting itself as a superior civilization. They were presenting themselves as partners in a larger, more complex galactic journey. Research databases across multiple civilizations began processing the unprecedented information. What they discovered challenged everything they thought they knew about intelligence, cooperation, and potential. Sarah watched the room, her expression calm. Decades of preparation, generations of strategic thinking, were culminating in this moment. Humanity was introducing a new way of thinking about civilization itself. The presentation concluded not with demands or claims, but with a simple invitation. An invitation to imagine new possibilities, to create frameworks of understanding that went beyond traditional limitations. As the chamber processed the presentation, something fundamental shifted. The galactic understanding of humanity transformed. In that moment, they were no longer seen as a young, emerging species. They were recognized as architects of a new way of thinking about intelligence, cooperation, and potential. The galactic ascension had begun, and humanity was leading the way.